Hello everyone, welcome to Shaper Sessions. My name is Jake.
And I'm Russ.
And today we are doing inlays.
Flooring inlays. Specifically.
So prepare yourself to be floored.
Get out of here. We're super excited for this one. We've done inlay shows a couple of times this year, but some of our coworkers just came back from the NWFA Flooring Expo, which is a big flooring trade show. And we thought for everybody who saw Shaper Origin at our trade show booth, we would love to show you kind of a more in-depth demo of how we do flooring inlays with Origin and also how we design those inlays with Shaper Studio. So for anyone who's watching who's not a flooring guy, this is a great studio show as well. You'll learn a little bit about that.
Mm-hmm. So the first half of the show, we're going to be cutting some parts. We're going to be talking about how we did it and why we did it that way. And then second half of the show, we're going to go over how we designed it.
Mm-hmm. And in the middle of the sandwich, we've got some great announcements for you all. Most importantly, the winners of our Studio Design Challenge that just wrapped up. So make sure you hang on to the middle of the show for that.
Some very cool submissions there that I'm excited to look through.
Speaking of winners and giveaways, also, we're going to have a poll question that pops up in the middle of the show. That's your chance to enter our Shaper Sessions weekly giveaway. This week, we're giving away some swag packs, which we haven't done in a while. Kind of fun.
Yeah, that is the hat, shop banner, and some stickers.
That poll question is also going to come up mid-show, and then for everyone watching live, we're going to do those giveaways at the end of the show where we answer all your questions live. Speaking of questions live, make sure to ask those questions in the comments so Ted, our guy in the comments, can send them to us.
Sweet.
Great. So without further ado, should we just get into pocketing out this inlay?
I got some work to do ahead of me. I've already cut out all my positive pieces over here. I'm working with 2 different species of hardwood. And let's pretend today like we are on the floor. We have a section of hardwood flooring here that we've made. So instead of actually being on the floor, for our knees' sake, we're on the table. But pretend we're on the floor today.
Can we go to that top-down view just to get like kind of an overview of what we're looking at today, Ned? Yeah, awesome.
Working with Shaper tape. Here's a quick fun thing before I get started. I'm cutting a compass rose, and I just couldn't help myself but orient this to proper north-south just by using my phone and dialing that in. So that is how I place this file. Again, just kind of a fun little... I thought it was cool. Wow.
I love that. And while we're on Origin screen, we got kind of that halfway pocketed view. Jake pocketed about half of this out before the show.
Yep.
But let's look at what we're working on today in total.
Yeah, so I took care of all this blue area just for the sake of time, and I am going to carry on over here with my pocket.
And what's your approach going to be for this? I see you've got the 16 millimeter bit chucked up.
Yep, I'm going to start off with a 16 millimeter bit, clear out the majority of my material. I'm going to swap to a 1/4 inch to get even further into some of these sharper peaks, and then we're going to finish it off with an inside cut with a 1/4 and a 1/16.
Okay.
But for now, let's do pockets.
Great, let's get to work. I'm going to hop off to the side here so we don't get blown out by the router sound. Now, we love doing these, just starting off with a router demo at the top so that you guys can see what we're working with. At the end of the day, we've got a bunch of products here at Shaper Tools, but I think the star of the show is the Shaper Origin handheld CNC router. And one of the things that makes it so great is that you can pick it up in its toolbox, take it to work basically anywhere on any job site, which makes it really unique for flooring. We're going to just go ahead and route out this pocket while people kind of trickle into the show, give you something nice to look at. But also while people are trickling in, since we're talking about studio today, I'd love to get a conversation going in the comments. Do you use Studio in your workflow? Have you tried Studio? Or maybe you're thinking like, hey, what the heck even is this Shaper Studio stuff? We read all the comments after the show, even though Jake and I don't have access to them during the show. So we would love to hear from you, and we'd love to get a conversation going about that as well as we just watch Jake pocket out this compass rose. Like he said, he's going to clear out most of that area with the 16 millimeter router bit. The larger router bit is awesome for clearing large, shallow areas of material like this. And then the downside to that, though, is that it doesn't reach into the corners quite as well because of that wider diameter. So we're going to swap to the 1/4-inch bit like he's doing now. And this is something new that we just started doing last show. We just started selling spare parts on our accessory store, which means that you can get a second spindle, which makes those router bit swaps that much faster. This is going to speed up our show process so much. I just love it for us. And here we go, back to that pocketing. And now all he has to do is go into those corners and nip it out with the 1/4-inch router bit. The cool thing about Origin in pocketing mode is inside that pocket, it works just like a standard plunge router. That spindle is locked in place and it moves with you as you move the tool. Then as you reach the boundary, the edge of that pocket, that's when that autocorrect kicks into gear. And as you ride along the boundary of that pocket on the screen, that autocorrection or that compensation range of Origin is going to kick in and prevent you actually from going over the bounds of that pocket. So it keeps you nice and safe inside that pocket with an automatic offset applied, and allows you to get a nice clean edge that we're going to come back and finish with an inside cut after we just talk about some flooring tips.
There we go.
So that's the start. Let's hit that overhead cam just to see what's going on now.
Everything's pocketed down to about 0.22 inches based on the thickness of my material. That thickness could be anything for that matter. If you're often we're using 1/8-inch thick material. We decided to go a little thicker for this. You can go 3/8. Again, it depends on how long you want that flooring inlay to last. If you want it to last multiple lifetimes, multiple sands.
Yeah, it's all about the sands, basically. Yeah. We've talked to a couple, we're not flooring guys, but we've talked to a couple people in the industry, and I've heard that you want a good inlay to last at least 3 sands.
Full down to the
like
the
the finish is completely stripped. Yeah. And I've heard that about a 1/4-inch, maybe even a little bit more, is about in the range for that. It's amazing how much material those sanders take off, actually.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
When we work with commercial veneers for like furniture and cabinetry, those are as thin as 1/42 of an inch. When we work on shop sawn veneers for more furniture-oriented pieces, we usually do 1/8 of an inch, but for flooring, we really like this 1/4-inch or more.
Yeah.
So that's one note to start with. The other note, since we're talking about depths, typically with inlays, one thing that I love to share is that I usually want my inlay material to be a little bit proud of the surface.
Yeah, just a little bit, because it's a heck of a lot easier to knock that down with a sander than it is the entire surface.
Again, since you're coming at this with a flooring sander, it's going to be a lot easier to even that out. But when you're thinking about furniture and cabinetry and things like that, you want that inlay to be a little bit above your top surface.
Yeah.
And thinking of depths and offsets, those kind of all go together on Origin screen. What offsets did you use for this, Jake?
So for this, I'm actually going to be cutting the pocket to a 0-inch offset. I think I might have to take a little bit off of it in the negative direction. Because when I'm doing the type of inlay that has multiple parts coming together, and there's a tolerance between these two parts, I actually go ahead and take a -2 thou off of these, which I normally don't do. If I'm just taking one piece and inlaying it, that's cut to 0. Offset is done in a pocket. But since we have interference there, 2 thou off everything, which kind of makes so far 0 on the pockets working perfectly. But we'll see. It's kind of a compounding thing. Once I get all the pieces in there, I might not be able to fit that last piece.
So you want to cut your positives first, always. When you're doing inlays, that's pretty much a guideline with Origin. Always cut your positives first. When you're doing a lot of positives, more than like 2 or 3, we like to take a little bit of offset extra off of all those positives, and then we can adjust the final offset on that big negative piece.
Yeah. The interesting thing too, so we're talking about big inlays. We could have sized this up considerably, which is nice to be able to just scale it directly on tool or scale it in studio. I very intentionally left a circular design in the middle of this compass to kind of...
Let's go to that overhead view.
Yeah.
There we go.
To illustrate the point. So if this was as it starts to get bigger, it's a larger pocket. And what happens when you pocket large things with origin, the base could potentially slip in, especially if that pocket is the size of origin's base. So in that case, you can work in a design element like this little island. It could be whatever shape you want, but now it's a feature and it gives a little extra space for the base of origin to ride on without sinking in.
That's a really clever idea.
Yeah.
If you wanted that to even be a different wood material, you could do this in a couple of different steps.
Mm-hmm.
You could pocket out that circle first, inlay that circle, glue it in place,
Totally.
and then cut over it. You could have a multi-step thing. And as long as you have that circle in the middle, you'll be leaving that island there for support, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. Worth mentioning, too, if you don't want to do that and you just want a giant pocket, you can do that, too. But you got to be a little bit more cautious around how you pocket. So instead of just pocketing willy-nilly and potentially falling into it, what we recommend is cutting your inside cut first, then switch to your pocket from the bottom of the shape up. Kind of fill that shape in from the bottom up, because origin is front weighted, heavier in the front. So as long as the front of origin is on secure land, you'll be less likely to tip into that pocket.
That's really smart, because when you're doing that inside cut, which is the finishing pass of this pocket or of this inlay negative, you're completely fully supported. And then when you're cutting that pocket, which is kind of the rough interior of this inlay negative, you are as supported as you can be, working from the bottom up, but also it doesn't have to be as precise and as perfect as that outside boundary.
Yeah. Caveat there is you have to kind of guess on your final offset, whether that be 0 or if you just want to say, okay, -2 thou, and if there's any kind of a gap, I'm okay with that. I'll fill it. Something I've also learned is foreign people are totally okay with gaps because they're going to fill it in anyways.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Let's talk about gaps. We had a question from a coworker actually before the show. What do you do about gaps in inlays? And it's tough because the bigger the inlay and the more pieces that you have, the more that kind of error compounds. Yeah. There's, on one hand, only so much that you can do with wood because it's a natural growing and shrinking material, right? The beauty of origin is that it's so precise that it makes you want to get the absolute best possible fit. And the way that we do that almost always is with offsets. So you want to sneak up on that offset and you want to have as snug of a fit as possible. There is going to be a point, though, when you have so many parts that it's basically impossible to calculate, and you just have to get it as close as you can with that 0 offset, maybe a skosh bigger or smaller. And then after the fact, what are some techniques that you would use maybe to fill any tiny gaps that might appear?
Oh, there's the old wood glue and sawdust trick if you're trying to match the color. The wood fillers out there are getting more and more advanced and better. So if you were in the flooring industry, I trust that you know exactly what to fill it with. But I would probably do the wood glue and sanding trick.
And we're talking about gaps of like the thickness of a piece of paper or smaller. So something you could handle it with a little bit of squeeze out even.
On a floor, you wouldn't even notice because it's that far away from you. What was I going to say?
I don't know. We could talk about router bits and spindles.
Sure.
I talked a little bit about it while you were working, but I talked about how you're using the 16 millimeter bit to pocket and then the 1/4 inch bit to come in and get more of those corners as you are finishing that pocket, getting places that the 16 millimeter bit won't reach. But I'd love to hear about all of the router bits that you've chosen for today and the spindle setups.
Absolutely. The 16 millimeter cutter is incredible. I can't recommend it enough, especially if you're into inlays and pocketing or just like cutting giant box joints or whatever it is. It is an absolute beast. Your handy dandy 1/4 inch cutter that comes with origin, and then we're rounding it out with the 1/8 inch collet and a 16th inch bit.
Okay. Skipping all the way down from 1/4 inch to a 16th inch.
Yeah, and I'm just using that so that I can get these corners sharp. And we'll go more into this. Your options when doing inlays and origin are to either accept a little bit of corner radius and work with that, or hand chisel, or, as we'll show later, turn it into a design element.
Yeah, exactly. So let's show off what you've done, because you tried a couple of different methods already here on the pocket that you had already cut.
I did. I'm not sure how well you can see this overhead, but these were cut with the 1/4-inch bit, which left, as you can see, a pretty decent radius. And then I tried my best to chisel to a point from there. Now, our chisels aren't perfect for this situation, and neither is my hand at a chisel. So that's why I decided to switch over to a 16th-inch bit and at least get the majority of that out of there, the material out of that corner. And to me, that is enough.
Mm-hmm.
But if you were, say, you really wanted that like super tight point, you can absolutely finish that off with a chisel, and it's not impossible.
Let's talk about the feature of the chisel that actually made a difference, because I learned something today about chisels. We have our standard shop chisels, and we borrowed an extra fancy chisel from a coworker to make this happen.
So we were trying to go at it with, probably go to this camera, our standard bench chisel, and we were running into the side. It wasn't quite tight enough to actually get into this really tight corner. And what were these?
These are Sam's, I think, dovetail chisels.
Yeah. So it's a steeper incline on all sides, and it allowed us to get into the corner a little bit better.
Mm-hmm. So chisel tip for you.
Chisel tip.
So chisel, 1/16 of an inch corner is your second option if you want a nice sharp corner but don't want to chisel. And then let's talk about that circular design element.
Yes.
Let's show that off on the overhead cam.
All right. So these right here, these are our smaller points, our southwest. Southwest here. We decided to turn this element, the tip of the triangle, into a circular element, so it allowed us to get our cutter in there. And for our positives, we didn't have to cut. How do I orient this? We didn't have to cut it to a complete point. We actually kept that radius in there, and we're using some 3/8 dowel to cap it off. Again, kind of a crafty way of getting around having to chisel corners, and becomes a design element.
Yeah, it's honestly like even more detail, and I think even more valuable in that way. I think it's really cool. That's awesome. Before we get back into finishing the inside cut for this inlay, I would love to cover just any other flooring applications, because we're focusing on inlays today, but we've got a lot of flooring viewers, I think, today. And so what other ways have you seen Origin used for flooring?
Oh, boy. So anytime that you are going to the floor and you need to cut a precise bit of hardware into the floor, instead of having to make a jig, you now have all your jigs on hand. So think high school gym floor that has outlets throughout, or has volleyball pole attachments, all of these kinds of like fixtures that go flush into the floor. You can cut, you can design directly on tool, or you can use Studio. You can use plate and not have to throw down any tape. And really, it's just kind of a seamless experience of installing this kind of hardware. When it comes to registers, floor vents, things like that, not only can you cut the hole, the cutout for the vent itself, but you can make the vent itself. If you wanted to take some of the existing flooring, some of the leftover flooring, glue that up so that you have proper grain, proper color of that floor, you can make your own register. And unfortunately, I don't have any of those things to show you.
We thought of this question like right before the show. We were so into inlay mode.
Because all of our stuff is in the crate on its way back from Milwaukee.
Yep. But it's really cool, and we have some great examples on YouTube that you could check out.
We do.
So, without further ado, I mean, I don't have any more questions on this one. Anything else you want to cover?
I do want to. I've had some really incredible experiences talking to flooring people at NWFA. That this tool kind of allows you to enter the inlay game from, maybe you have a flooring business, and that's one step that you haven't quite gotten to, and you want to maybe offer that to your customers. One, maybe 2 jobs of a custom inlay for a customer would pay for this tool and that kind of thing. It elevates your I should say elevates, but it like expands your capabilities as a flooring contractor to be able to offer this and offer just a really cool custom thing.
Yeah, I mean, we're doing kind of a standard compass rose, but with studio, if you go back and watch some of our other studio shows, you can see that the possibilities are basically endless as to what you can design. You're going to import designs from other sources. You could have a 2D designer designing crazy logos and graphics for you. You can inlay those into floors. You can do really genuinely anything.
Yeah. Game changer. All right.
Let's finish this one up.
All right.
Cool. So you are going to talk me through this because I'm going to be off camera. You're going to be going around and doing that inside cut with what? Starting with the 1/4 inch bit?
I'm going to keep that 1/4 inch bit in there because it allows me to get pretty much right up to my edge in most areas. Mm-hmm. The only time I'm going to switch to that 16th inch bit is just for those tight little corners in here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. So you're going to do all the way around with the 1/4 inch and then come back to get those last 4 corners with the 16th.
Bingo. And I also already know that I need to take a couple thou off of these circles to fit that 3/8 dowel.
Okay.
So I'll do that as well.
Okay. Great. Sounds good.
Sweet.
So if you work on flooring, that's really awesome. If you're one of our regular every week viewers, you know, this stuff also applies if you're working on a home renovation, if you have inlays that you're working on for a furniture or cabinetry project or small boxes or anything like that. It's all similar, just on a different scale. Some of the vent register projects that we've done have been really cool. It adds a nice touch of class to your living room or whatever room it might be in. So definitely check some of those out. So we're cutting this inlay into the hardwood floor. A lot of people have their heads wrapped around tools pretty well, and when you think about it, this is more or less just like working with a plunge router, except all of your templates can be as complex as you want them to be. They're all stored on the router, and most importantly, the router autocorrects and basically prevents you from making any mistakes, which is unspeakably incredible. We love it. The challenging thing can be making these digital files, and so that's why in the second half of the show, we want to talk you through Shaper Studio and how we went about making the exact files for this project itself. The dimensions are going to be a little off just because we're going to be making them on the fly, but it is going to be the same geometric style of compass rose, a couple of triangles, some circles, all nicely overlaid with each other. I see we're at the first bit change here.
Bam. Bam. Spindle pit stop.
This is like Formula One. Ned says, show off how easy it is. I say, don't rush. Don't forget to Z-touch.
Yeah.
Don't overplay it. It's cool. Got a Z-touch still.
Boom. Back to 0. Here we go.
So with Studio, we're going to be able to make this entire pattern just out of some combinations of some basic shapes. If you go back and watch some of our other studio shows on-demand sessions on our website, you'll see also, though, how to make much more complex files, like importing 2D designs from other sources, finding 2D designs from our Find Art feature, or adding text. You know, one thing that you might want to add to this is a little north, south, east, west for this compass rose. We skipped that for today because it was just one thing too many. But if you were doing that for a project, it'd be a nice little thing to add. A couple extra bucks. How are we looking, Jake? All set?
What's a couple extra bucks?
Adding a little north, south, east, west lettering to this.
Yeah.
With some studio text.
You absolutely can.
How are we doing?
This is south. I forgot. Until we move this section of flooring. We're great. I'm just going to clean some of the tape off and knock off some fuzz with my handy-dandy sanding stick. I think people always want to know where we get these sanding sticks.
Well,
So,
where do we get these sanding sticks?
I think it's actually called sandingsticks.com. I don't
I feel like you just made that up. I feel like you just made
I
that up.
believe Ted has the link because people have asked him for it so many times. So hopefully he can share that.
Mm-hmm.
And we get this fuzz on there because we almost always use upcut bits, and it just leaves a little extra fiber from the wood pulled up. It doesn't split the grain or anything like that. It just it comes off real easy with a sanding pass.
Mm-hmm. And the beauty of that up-spiral router bit is that it really clears those chips away, which gives you a lot longer bit life. Something like a straight flute or a down-cutting router bit would save some of that fuzz, but at the expense of a little extra heat because it's packing all of those chips into the cut.
Yeah.
Looking pretty good, though. Have we got the overhead cam view of this?
Probably. There we go.
Yeah, nice.
What's fun, too, probably the biggest thing that you should do if you ever plan on doing this in a client's home, do a test cut so that you're comfortable with it, and it's not the first time you're doing it.
Yeah, do it in your shop first. Absolutely.
This is the first time I'm cutting this particular design, so wish me luck. But we've done quite a few of these.
Yeah, we've done a lot, but you can never overstate the value of testing.
Yes. When in doubt, try it out.
What do you think? Think we could jam those in there now?
Yeah, I think so.
Let's give it a shot. I'll try to pre-arrange these for you.
Thank you.
Which ones do you want? The long ones first?
Quick vacuum. Yes. All right, these are going on here. And I might need to knock down the sharp corners on these.
Mm-hmm.
I might not. We'll see. Okay, there it is. We're going to be kind of crude with this today. Not too crude. But I want this to fit. There we go.
Sound pretty good.
Voila.
We got a very angry YouTube comment the other day about how we malleted something without a protective piece of wood on top of it.
Angry.
Mm-hmm. Angry.
Well,
Hopefully jokingly so. All I gotta say, haters gonna hate.
I get it. I hear you. I hear your truth. And probably you're right.
You're probably right.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, that sounded good going in.
And again, I apologize for the crudeness of taking off this nice sharp tip on these inlay pieces, but I would rather be able to assemble this whole thing.
Mm-hmm. We were going to chisel out one of those corners live, but it was so little material that it didn't really play well on camera.
Yeah, and staring at the back of my head, the overhead camera is less entertaining, I think.
All right, I got some little pieces here for you.
Beautiful. This is really, so these tolerances are starting to compound, but that fit awesome. That is so cool. I'm using white oak and sapele, which is a fun combination, kind of a very warm autumny tones. All right, finish it off with the little pieces of dowel. Now I chose to use dowel really just for simplicity, but you could absolutely cut small circles as long as you don't lose them. Woohoo.
when you have a lot of depth on pieces like that, you can't do this with very thin inlay parts, but when you have a lot of depth, it can be nice to add just a little chamfer underneath, also with some sandpaper or a knife. Just a little bit, just to help ease it in. Look at that. Last one.
This is fun too because these put just enough pressure inwards to really bring everything together. There we go.
All right.
Voila.
Not bad.
That was a fun one.
Let's I want to go back to the overhead cam on that one and just like revel in this for a second. I'm really happy with that.
Yeah. Everything feels really good. Again, we're slightly above the surface. I can get a fingernail on it, which means with glue. Which
is perfect.
Yeah, with glue, quicksand, you're ready to go. And after that set, another way you could, an alternative to editing this little center part, leave your tape set up, create a grid so that you're placing on the same grid point, and you could glue this in, then come back in and cut whatever you want in the center part.
Yeah, you can do this in multiple steps and multiple layers.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right.
Sweet.
What do you say we take a little break? Little mid-show break. Yeah. We got some product announcements. We got a poll question to pull up. So let's pull up that poll question for the giveaway. That poll question is going to be, we're about to talk about Studio, second half of the show. If you use Studio, what Studio features would you like to see next? You know, we've got some ideas, but we'd love to hear yours. So answer that in the poll question. While that's up, we're going to talk about product announcements.
Yes.
So a couple of these you've already heard, but we love them, so we're going to dwell on them. Spare parts. That's the first one. Jake's been using some extra spindles today, and you've seen how they've made his router bit changes way faster. We had our buddy Mike Coffey on the other week. He was using multiple spindles, and he uses multiple spindles in his own shop to do those production redwood cookie coffee tables with bow tie inlays, which is really cool. But not only that, it's not only just productivity enhancers. We also have things that you might genuinely need to replace over the course of your tool's life, because it's a thing that we want to last for a very, very long time.
Yeah.
And we want to enable you to change it and fix it when, in case you cut into the reticle on your plate.
Right, exactly.
As an example.
Replaceable part. We have fences that are replaceable parts, flags for whatever reason if you need to replace those. We have workstation tops. We have workstation support bars. We have spoil boards. We have skid pads for the bottom of Origin. Say you cut something really aggressive and it's all chewed up.
Or what I love is if you've cut something, colored, and you want to have a nice clean surface for cutting something that you want to keep absolutely pristine, like white architectural panels. You don't want them to get scuffed at all. Just throw a new skid pad on there.
By your red MDF dust that you cut before.
Yeah, yeah, right. I've thought about that for photo frame mats.
Ah, yeah.
They're like paper, but they're solid. You could cut them.
Absolutely.
I want to play with that. We might do a show about that later this year. Spare parts. Check them out. shapertools.com/accessories. They're under the accessories page. All right, that's one thing. Second thing that's out now that we talked about a little bit last week, but that we love and we want to share again is caliber bender connectors.
Yeah.
So caliber bender connectors are these dovetail connectors that screw onto your workpieces. Then there's this custom dovetail that's cut in the negative on the other piece with a special caliber bender router bit. We sell the connectors and the router bit on our website. It's a really great use of Origin because you want to nail that depth. You want to get it right on the line, and Origin's great at both of those things.
Very satisfying product and holds up to a lot.
My favorite flat pack connector so far, and I've used a lot of them.
Wow.
Speaking of a lot of flat pack connectors, we've got tomorrow, not out quite yet, but tomorrow we have an update to our hardware catalog, which is our digital repository of cut templates for hardware that you might want to install with Origin. It's going to be like, after tomorrow, it's going to be over 150 of our favorite pieces of hardware from around the world, from America, from Europe, and your favorite. We've taken a lot of feedback on the feedback button at the bottom of the screen there. So let's talk really quickly about what's being added.
Yeah. This is huge. I haven't seen Russ in weeks. He's just been like heads down
just been like working on this. Yeah. I said, don't bother me. One, floating shelf connectors, and I'm going to hand these over to you to show off on the bench cam. Not floating shelf connectors, but floating shelf hardware supports. Let's show that on the bench cam.
How is this camera?
There we go. Yeah, perfect. So this is a product from Italiana Ferramenta. They're adjustable in all 3 dimensions or all 3 directions. Really cool floating shelf hardware.
Super cool. Totally editable for any kind of sag, too.
Mm-hmm. And we've got a couple different sizes from them. Number 2, flat pack connectors. These are from Striplocks. These are available on rockler.com. We've been trying to get more stuff from Rockler in the website. And I think these are probably most useful for architectural panels. They're big and weight-bearing. And they snap together.
And permanent, or semi-permanent.
Semi-permanent, yeah. You can snap that tab off. Mm-hmm. We're getting a note to show the website of the hardware catalog, which we'll definitely do after we show off these hardware pieces.
These ones are cool.
These are fun. These are Trolla Roll 2000 sliding door inserts. And you would use these on a cabinet, maybe, that you want to have a sliding door on. Pretty slick. Those insert in the back of the door, and they ride in a track with an adjustable roller. We have 2 different kinds of countertop connectors. So underneath big monolithic countertops, they have these seams. They have to be pulled together. One manufacturer is Zipbolt. That's the one on the right. The other manufacturer is Nape and Vogt, and they make this tight joint connector. Kind of 2 different methods of tightening the same way. You can see they look pretty similar. And last but not least, some of our favorite shop jigs and fixtures are made with mag switch. So we've got these mag switch profiles. These are switchable magnets. The magnets turn on and off based on you turning the knob. You have to press it and turn to go the other way. That's the heavy duty one.
It is not joking around.
That one's not joking around. So you could take these and make your own custom jigs and fixtures. And Ned, if you're ready to pop over to my computer here, we can just show off the hardware catalog at the Shaper Tools website coming up here in a second.
Keep it coming, though. If there's still a piece of hardware that you don't see on our catalog that you want to see, let us know about it. Mm-hmm. That's super important to get feedback from all y'all.
All right, here we go. Let me know when we're ready. There we go. So you're looking at the hardware catalog here. If you are on the home page of Shaper Hub, you can just hit hardware catalog, this button right here, or you could type in shapertools.com/hardware. That'll take you there. We've got all different types of hardware. We've got hinges, mounting plates for hinges, fasteners, drawer pulls, latches, etc. You can see just on this top line here, we have some door handle hardware, keyhole hardware, barbells, our Shaper Tools barbells for patching cracks in slabs. Let's just scroll down a little bit more here. We've got some Brusso hardware, the Salice air hinge, which is really slick for cabinetry. But there's quite a lot going on. There's 130 or so products in here right now. It's going to be over 150 tomorrow. So if you want to narrow that down, you can hit this filter. You can see all of the manufacturers that we've got in here. It's going to expand by another 6 tomorrow. Styles of hinges, etc., that you might want to select. So what are you looking for, Jake? Let's filter this down. What do you want?
I'm going to go for the long Kyvelbender connector.
Okay, I know that's made by Kyvelbender, so instead of scrolling through this whole thing, I'm just going to click Kyvelbender, show 2 results. We've got the Kyvelbender Langhals, which is the long connector. And you can see some information about that here. The dimensions, so you get kind of a reality check about what you're looking at. Any additional hardware to install this, you're going to need that Kyvelbender router bit. Some cut information, which is also embedded in the file, so you can see a preview of the cut file here. These cut files are all verified and made and verified by us at Shaper. So you know that they're trustworthy. They all have custom anchor points. They all have encoded depths, anything that you would want. And then you've also got the manufacturer's resources here. So this is a little extra information from the manufacturer, usually in PDF form, about how to install your hardware. You could download that if you want to sync it via USB or look at those PDFs. Or I think I already have this one synced to my account. If you didn't already, you could click Sync to your files. You've already added this one. But that would sync automatically to Origin by clicking that. Obviously, you don't want 10 of the same thing. You don't want to sync. So that is the Shaper Hub hardware catalog.
Awesome.
Look for more coming tomorrow. Product announcements. I think that's it. We could probably pull that poll question down, and let's roll into our shop tour.
Yeah.
As a reminder, we do these shop tours every show. Send yours to sessions@shapertools.com. That's our email address. And every shop tour that we play is going to get a little something. This week, we're giving Ray, what did we decide on? Pack of barbells.
Pack of barbells.
Pack of barbells. So these are the barbells that the template is available for on the hardware catalog. We also sell these on our accessories site. And let's just take a look at these. It's a pack of 5 polished brass barbells for patching your slabs, any cracks or anything that might be going on, or just decorative.
Yeah. Very cool.
All right, so let's pull up that shop tour.
Hi, my name's Ray from Manchester. I'm about to show you around the smallest shop in the world. Show you the garden before I go into the shed. There you see me round the table, on top of my table saw, planer on the floor, bandsaw, everything just piled on top of each other.
Thanks again, Ray. We'll send you some barbells.
Last but not least, announcement, Studio Design Challenge winners.
Yes, so we have the pleasure of announcing who won our most recent challenge, and we're going to show you the top 3 submissions.
All right. Let me know when you've got the laptop screen pulled up here, Ned. I've got some photos here. Let's remind people what everyone won, because this is cool. First place, a free Shaper Origin.
There you go.
This is why we love participation in our competitions here.
Yeah.
All right, and the winners are, without further ado, this project is incredible. The Eternal Calendar by Chris Maker. This was entirely designed in studio. Incredible use of shapeshifter, and you can see behind the title here, there's this magnetic ring, and that blocks out the area around a number, which makes that number visible.
Yep. Yeah,
Super slick.
The ring itself is 3D printed. All of the vinyl was cut using a laser cutter.
This is, it's actually no origin in this project at all, which we love because we love seeing studio used with other devices for making, which is great.
It is usable across all platforms.
All right, next. This is, I think, Jake's favorite, the Zundap bike. But you're biased.
I'm biased. Motorcycles will always have my heart.
But this one's super sweet. This was also completely designed in studio. This was like a push bike for a kid. And it's got a turning handlebar, and it's got rubber tires. It's insanely cool.
And again, just really creative uses of shapeshifter. All these projects were just blew our minds on how they used it, and inspired us also.
Phenomenally realistic. And then last but not least, third place, the longboard snow skate. So what I loved about this one, this project had a video that accompanied it that you could check out on YouTube, and it had kind of an iterative design process. They went back and forth. They tried a couple of different things in studio, didn't love it, tried it again with a different shape, and came out with this, a functional longboard snow skate, which is wild to watch this dude ride. He's skateboarding on snow.
Very cool.
So, thank you everyone for participating.
Congratulations, first place for Shaper Origin. Second and third place is going to get 1 year Shaper Studio for free.
Yep.
That's it. That's awesome. Thank you all for participating, and check out #Shaper Studio. Is it Studio Design Challenge?
No, I think it's just #Shaper Studio.
Shaper Studio.
Yeah, keep it simple.
To see some of those submissions, because they are very cool.
Super, super cool. Speaking of studio, let's roll into how we made this inlay.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Let's do it.
Okay.
Again, heavily inspired by so many of the things that we saw from this design challenge.
Now, I'm going to do the best I can to explain this as I go, but also being time conscious, I'm going to kind of cruise through it. Make sure you ask questions in the chat, and we're going to cover any questions that you have at the end. I want to make sure I get the questions from you, So, let's start out. Studio is all about basic shapes and kind of combining those basic shapes cleverly to make the geometry that you want. So, we're going to work just with triangles and circles, basically, for this. Let's go to the overhead cam on that one more time just to see what our goal is. So, First, we're going to make some of those big triangles, then we're going to make the small triangles, and then we're going to add those kind of circular points onto the small triangles.
Yeah.
Okay? Let's rock. Let's pull up the laptop screen here. There are a lot of ways to make shapes in Studio. You can find art, which is existing shapes. You can literally make shapes, geometric shapes. You can make text, or you can import a file. Today, we're going to be working 100% with make shape. And we're going to start with some triangles, which are under the polygon tab. So let's edit this. We want 3 sides, obviously. And I'm going to call this one, let's make this 6 inches tall and unlink those and make this 2 inches wide. And we'll just zoom out so that everybody can see that. Okay? We'll click away from that, save that. And I've got my snap to grid turned on. I'm going to snap that nice 1 inch above the center, the bottom 1 inch above the center. I'm going to add another triangle. I'm just going to add a couple of shapes here. It's going to be a bunch of triangles. And then we're going to do some shapeshifter magic to bring them all together. I want this triangle to be 2 inches wide and 1 inch tall. And this means that you're going to see this in a second. When I divide this by 2, I'm going to get a 45-degree angle here. Okay, perfect. And I'm going to drag this down there. Now, we want this these triangles to have a light side and a dark side, so we actually want this to be divided in 2. And so I'm going to make a rectangle here. I'm just going to pull these handles to make it a little bit bigger. Snap it over here. I want to make that just a little bit taller. Snap it, and we're going to use that plus shapeshifter for the first time to divide this shape in half. So let's hit shapeshifter there, and I want to keep these 2. This is like 1/2 of the big spear. All right, let's make that shape. Perfect. Now, we want to mirror this around, but I found that it's easier to do all of the possible shape shifting for a shape first and then mirror it and duplicate it around the canvas. So we want to take care of that circular cutout in the center. I'm going to make this a 2.5 inch diameter circle, just kind of making up some dimensions, and I'm going to put that right in the center there. Again, I'm going to drag to select all and shape shift just that section right there. And actually, I'm going to undo that because I want to keep that circle. And I decided I want to keep that. So to do that, we're going to keep all existing shapes. So I'm going to make this shape and also keep the rest of the shapes at the same time. So now you can see I have 3 shapes. I have this new shape, I have this bigger triangle, and then I still have this circle. But I can delete, get rid of that triangle. And now you see I have this kind of spear around the circle. Now I'm going to do a bunch of duplicating. This is like the fastest way to make a kind of circular pattern. So first I'm going to duplicate this. I'm going to make the width. I'm going to multiply it by -1 to flip it. Okay, perfect. Now I can click away from this and drag it. This is why I love that snapping feature. It just snaps right where it's supposed to be. Now this is great. I can take both of these, duplicate them together, flip them all the way around. I'm going to zoom out just a little bit and drag those into place. And last but not least, duplicate all of this, rotate it 90 degrees, and, oh, come on, there we go. I've got a 4-sided star.
So fast.
Super quick. So I like making one element and then kind of duplicating it around the space. Now I'm going to do something a little tricky. I'm going to take 4 of these because I want that bounding box with the point in the middle. I want to have that anchor point at 0, 0. And by getting all 4 of these, I have this kind of symmetric shape that I can now duplicate. I can rotate by 45 degrees. I can scale down. So let's make these, let's say, 5.5 inches.
And you had that linked.
I have those linked, so it goes both ways at the same time. And now, since I have this symmetric part, I can drop it with that anchor point right in the middle. Okay, we're not quite done with this yet. Let's we can also Control A to select everything and shapeshift. So I'm going to do a couple of moves all in one go, but basically I'm going to create these little triangles, keep all the existing shapes though, because you don't want to get rid of the rest of this and make that shape. Then as I go around, I'm going to delete that longer triangle. And that's because all I want is this little bit right here. So I'm going to do that all the way around. Shapeshift, keep that, also keep the rest of the shapes, make that new shape, and get rid of that old shape. Let's do that one more time. Select all, shapeshift, make that new shape while keeping the rest of the shapes, get rid of that old shape, and one last time. Shapeshift, make that new shape while keeping the old shape, and get rid of this one. Cool. We need to add these little circles. Let's make this one a 1/4 inch, just because this inlay overall is, I think, smaller than the one that you were working on, Jake. We can zoom in and move that so that it kind of snaps right there, and we're just going to get rid of that little extra point bit. We're also going to duplicate that and bring it over here at the same time. And I like doing this just to keep it symmetric. We want to keep this symmetric shape. And now let's do that same thing. Shapeshift, make this new shape, still keep shapes. We're going to do that all the way around. Make this new shape while keeping the shapes. Make this new shape while keeping the shapes. And then one last one. Make this new shape while keeping the rest of the shapes. Now, a little bit more deleting. I want to zoom in here and get rid of these long triangles. We can zoom in up here, get rid of these long triangles, and by just clicking again, that is what allows me to really easily select those shapes that are on top of each other. And now I'm going to take all 6 of these and just duplicate that work really easily. The symmetry is the key to making this happen. Rotate that by 90 degrees, and since that anchor point is right in the center, we can line that all up.
Beautiful.
We're not done yet. It's beautiful, but we're not done yet. Last thing is that we need to break out all of these parts that we want to cut. So we can take an individual part, duplicate it, put it off to the side. Take this part, duplicate it, put it off to the side. Take this part, you could use a dowel, or you could duplicate it and cut out your own. Put it off to the side. And let's say we were going to inlay this actual circle. You could duplicate that and put it off to the side. So we have all the positives that you're going to want to cut. Then we can go ahead and take just this star now, shapeshift it, select all, make shape, and that's one big pocket to cut out.
Amazing.
If you wanted to do it the way that Jake did it, while leaving this circle in the middle, you could, again, select everything, unselect these individual parts because you don't want to mess with those, shapeshift, and the shape that you would want, it's actually easier to, here, we'll do the select all and exclude. Make that shape. You would then not actually be cutting the circle out of a positive, you would be leaving this in the material. So let's get rid of this part. We're not going to need that in this kind of hypothetical scenario. You're going to be cutting out this pocket, and then these 3 here over on the kind of right-hand side, those are the positives that you want. We can plan this by breaking out in here, making this a pocket type. What depth did you say you liked that for, Jake? 0.22?
Yeah.
All right, I love that. And we're going to finish that with a 1/16 of an inch router bit. Let's show this off. You can now do math inside these fields. So you can do 1/16, hit enter, and it automatically does that math for you. That's awesome. We're going to change these to not inside, but outside cuts because they're positive shapes. Outside, and now we can review this. So we've got this nice pocket. You can see that we've gotten pretty far into these corners. We've just got that 1/16 of an inch radius there, which you can knock off with a little bit of sandpaper on your points, or you could come in here with a chisel and chisel those out. And we've got our positives, which you could duplicate. I'm going to show you one cool trick, though, that Jake and I talked about before the show. This is something that I kind of usually forget to do. I just work with this big file and I drag this extra big file around wherever I need it. But you can break out these individual parts into their own separate files, and I'm going to show you how to do that. So if we go into this menu, we've got this duplicate design feature, and this is new as of this year. I think this was introduced in January or so. If we hit this duplicate design, we're going to get this new design, and instead of floor inlay copy 1, I'll call it floor inlay long triangle. Done. So we've got a new file called floor inlay long triangle. I'm going to delete everything that's not that long triangle, move that right to the middle, and now we've got one standalone file for this inlay positive. We can go ahead and cut 8 of these. We can do the same thing for the short triangle. We can duplicate design. We'll call this short triangle. Perfect. Delete these. Bring that. Click it first, then drag. Bring that over to the center. And last but not least, let's duplicate this one more time, and we'll call this floor inlay circle. And this is for these small circles at the ends of the triangle. So we'll delete that. We'll delete that. We'll delete that. Let's zoom in, and we can bring this nice over to the middle. Now, the beauty of this is that with Studio, all of these files are automatically synced to Origin, and I'm on Jake's account here on my laptop. Jake's on his account on Origin, and if we pull in that import page, you can see we might need to refresh it, or you got it pulled up right there. Perfect. We've got these files pre-encoded, ready to go. You could cut those positives, you could drop that negative onto your hardwood, and you're ready to rock.
Rotate 180, kind of nestle it in there. Leave room for your cutter, and you're ready to cut it out of your pre-made stock. Just like that. This, by the way, if you're planning on doing a ton of inlay cutting, cutting your positives on the workstation using the shelf is the absolute best way to do it.
Absolute best way.
Absolute
you heard it
best
here
way.
first.
Yeah, because then it doesn't matter how thick it is actually. It's just you're gonna zero it out.
Yep.
On a workstation, you're good to go.
And if you want to see us cut some inlay positives, check out some of our other shows on inlays. We've done a few of them now. They're all available on demand at shapertools.com/sessions. And you'll get to see us walk through that whole process. But we really wanted to focus on the flooring aspect of it today.
Yeah.
Cool.
Right on.
Thanks, everybody, for joining us. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Cheers. Thanks.